Hello and welcome to another episode of the Straight Talk about Small Business Success podcast. I've got a special guest with us. His name is Aaron Marcum. Aaron, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here and excited to have this conversation with you, Slim. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, your bio is amazing. I'm going to quickly read it and then we're going to talk about positive psychology. And you hold a Master's of Applied Positive Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, where you studied under Dr. Martin Seligman. He's the father in the field of positive psychology. So for 20 years, Aaron has successfully scaled businesses and he's the recipient of top industry awards recognizing his leadership, vision, and service. He's been a sought out national speaker for the last 15 years, since 2006. He enjoys empowering entrepreneurs to make positive changes in their personal and professional lives. His new book, Entre Thrive, The Entrepreneur's 8 Laws for Eliminating Unhealthy Stress, Flourishing Personally, and Creating the Good Life, will be released, I think, very shortly in this month or so. It's being released. Aaron, that's amazing. You've written a book. How was the process of writing a book and getting everything probably out of your head onto paper?
Yeah, a great question. It was really inspired by the program when I went through the positive psychology later on in life. Like I had been an entrepreneur for 20 years and I was fascinated with the field of positive psychology, especially as it related to the entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And that was I did my capstone in that program, inspired by Marty and others, Martin Seligman, and to really focus on entrepreneurial well-being. And it was that capstone, that thesis I wrote that inspired the book. And it's been a process, been a journey. I've been at it for over a year writing the book because I wanted it to really speak to the entrepreneurs who are struggling. They might be financially well off, but they still have the challenges of uncertainties and other things that are happening. But it was also transformational for me. I mean, when you write a book like this, you benefit as the author. You learn things
Hmm.
that you otherwise wouldn't have learned in your
Hmm.
research and in your deeper dive into the
Hmm.
science of well-being, which is something I benefited from, which is positive psychology.
Hmm. One
Yeah.
of the first books that I read, and this is many, many years back, 35 or 40 years back, was The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr.
Mhm.
Norman Vincent Peale.
Yes.
And that book
Classic.
influenced me greatly. So, what is, like, you talk about positive psychology? What is positive psychology? Why is it important for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Positive psychology is the science of well-being. I mean, in a nutshell, and just let me expound that, is that it's the science of well-being in the sense that why do some people flourish and why do some people don't or thrive? You could use either word. And Martin Seligman, along with a couple others, like you're probably familiar with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work with flow, and Chris Peterson. Those are the kind of the three pillars of founders of the positive psychology movement. And there's others I think I would add there, that 25, 30 years ago, especially Marty was kind of exhausted with the reactive stance psychology had been taking for many, many decades, reacting to behavioral issues and so forth. So psychology up until about 30 years ago was a reactive science. Positive psychology, on the other hand, is a proactive science. Like, let's get in front of it and help people thrive before they get into those
Hmm.
crisis modes or
Hmm.
crisis situations. So
Hmm.
it's really the science of why do some people thrive and why do some
Hmm.
people don't, and helping those
Hmm.
who, regardless of where they're at in their lives, can
Hmm.
figure it out. Specifically for entrepreneurs, where they have uncertainties, some real different challenges that the rest of the population may not have, and the pressures that they feel to succeed, that it's really important for entrepreneurs to use the science of positive psychology to help live the best lives that they can.
Hmm.
Because think about the impact of a lot of entrepreneurs throughout the world. They influence so many others, not just their family members, but their employees, their team members. If they're thriving, it's like a domino effect. And
Mm,
so positive psychology is the science rather than, and I absorb a lot of self-help, self-development books. I'm a huge fan of Brian Tracy and others, Tony Robbins, and they are exceptional. Positive psychology marries some of the self-help with the actual science of
mm,
things. So you even get a deeper dive into why is this happening and how can I improve it. So that hopefully that was
yeah,
helpful.
that's great. And so there's probably like laws, characteristics of what needs to happen for somebody to thrive and what doesn't happen. And that's why somebody goes into not thriving. So I want to get into some of the laws there. But but before we do that, you talk about the concept of the good life. What is that?
Yeah. The good life, this is an over 2,000-year-old term. Aristotle came up with this term. And what Aristotle meant back then, and it applies 100% today, is he called it the complete life. It's the virtuous life. When I talked about character strengths, we'll talk more about those, I think, but those are all tied to virtues. And living this virtuous life as entrepreneurs, I think, is really important. And so when we say the good life, and there was a very popular book written this last year called The Good Life, based upon the longest Harvard study about relationships and connections and how our relationships and connections help us live a better life and what, again, Aristotle calls the complete life or the good life. And so for the entrepreneur, I call it the good life mindset in a sense,
Mm,
is that it's a journey for entrepreneurs. It's a journey for anyone. But again, the book is about entrepreneurs and how they can create the good life for themselves. You first have to create it before you can live it. And it's a journey. There's no finish line of the good life. You're constantly creating it for yourself and living the life that you want to live and create. And how that looks like is going to be different based upon what your guiding truths are and what's guiding you as a person. So I make that
hmm
any
So
follow-up
it's going to
questions on
be
that?
so
Sometimes,
it's going to
the good
be
life
yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah,
It's going to be different for everyone based
yeah,
on the guiding truths.
yes,
What are the guiding truths?
yeah. That leads us to that first law. So I have the 8 laws, and what I call the cornerstone law is the law of entre-clarity. And that's
Mm,
the entrepreneur getting clear
mm,
on what's truly valuable to them and what they want to be true about themselves. And it starts with the guiding truths. I've had my guiding truths for many years now. And there's been times where I've been all in with my guiding truths. And between about 2012 and 2015, I lost sight of those guiding truths.
mm,
And you can see the trajectory of my business. It suffered because of it. Your guiding truths actually create greater financial freedom. In fact, I would argue accelerate that financial freedom. I've been working for over 20 years now in the healthcare in-home care space, working with in-home care entrepreneurs specifically
mm,
and helping them lean into their guiding truths as well. And to see the impact and difference that it makes when they're clear on what those are
mm,
is pretty valuable. And we have, and we can put it in make sure it's in your show notes, but we have a tool that your listeners can download that help them get to their guiding truths in a more deliberate, intentional way.
mm. Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
So it starts with knowing oneself, becoming clear about
Yeah. Self-awareness,
ourselves.
self-acceptance, those are all really valuable.
Hmm,
Yeah.
got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are some of the other laws?
Yeah. So I'll just go through them really quick. Is the second law. So entre clarity is first. Second law is entre create. Without creation, um, entrepreneurs' well-being does suffer. If we're not creating as entrepreneurs, if we're not solving big problems, if we're in our business more than we're on our business, the on the business is the creation part of it,
Hmm,
right? And helping us get in, lean into that creation is really, really important. There's a lot of just great insights in that section, I believe, that really go deeper into the creative act, which is a great book, by the way, a recent book that I love as well about creation. The third law is entre-grit. And grit is about, I have 5 levels of grit: curiosity, interest, practice, passion, and calling. And a lot of times we stop at the passion part and forget there's another level. And the deeper we get into those levels of grit, the more staying power we have with our venture. And
Grit.
frankly, the more money we
Did you
make.
say grit? Grit?
Yeah, GRIT,
Got it. Entre grit. Okay.
grit.
Hmm.
Angela Duckworth wrote a great book on that, grit. She's a graduate of my program at UPenn, and she talks about the calling part of it and has so much evidence out there on when we feel called as entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
then our staying power is more secure.
Hmm.
The challenge is, especially with young entrepreneurs, I have found in my 22 years, and I remember this as a young entrepreneur, is that I wanted my passion to come automatically, like just felt like the passion would just fall into my lap. And what I did is that even though I was curious and I was interested, the first 2 levels of grit, I was trying to skip the practice part. Those are the 10,000 shots that Michael Jordan took, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's the leaning into whatever that is that you feel you can be passionate about and practicing it, working the kinks out. That's how we get to our passion. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of great evidence on that we use in positive psychology. And then the calling is beyond the passion. Like the calling is the next phase or the last level to say, I feel called to do this. And the difference between passion and calling is that passion is more internal. I wouldn't call it selfish because I love it. I love passion. It gets us really far.
Hmm.
We make an impact with our passion, but a lot of time it's internal. What am I passionate about? Mark O'Donnell, the CEO and visionary of EOS Worldwide, he and I had a conversation about this, and he made that point when I was actually writing through the book, and it was profound, and that there is a difference. Passion is about not self-serving, but it is about what you want as an entrepreneur. Calling, on the other hand, and this is what I came up with, is calling is the next level that says, I'm going to make an impact in the community, or
Hmm.
it's a greater impact on others.
Hmm.
And by externally looking at how your business is going to impact
Hmm. Hmm.
whoever you're serving,
Hmm.
and being clear on what that impact looks like,
Hmm.
that helps with our staying power and our grit.
Hmm.
I think it's such a wonderful concept.
Hmm. It's cause and effect. I mean, calling
Yeah,
is effect. It's like, how are we going to affect? How are we going to impact others?
your contribution. Yeah,
Your contribution. Yeah. Kind of give
yeah,
us, if I want to ask you, kind of, from somebody, just like a practical example. One of my clients is a dentist, owns a dental practice, successful, got a team of about 12 people, a couple of dentists that work there. He's the owner. He's at it for 15, 18 years. He's practicing dentistry every day. And there are days when he doesn't want to be a dentist. He's burnt out. It's one after another. It gets monotonous. Like what you have shared so far, how does it apply? How would it apply to a dentist who's kind of going through that
yeah,
stress and so many trying to keep everything afloat?
yeah, yeah. Sometimes when and I'm going back to the grit and, levels of grit, is if we're in the practice stage for too long, and maybe, it could even be an evolution where he once felt called as a dentist, right? And he was in that calling and all in,
Mm,
but we can also revert back to the practice stage when we're really just going through the motions, and perhaps even our curiosity and interest is starting to fade. And so my advice in this specific situation, and again, every situation is different, but obviously self-awareness of where you're at in those stages and why you're there, and that what does the next phase look like? Like, could he ever have that passion back for what he does as a dentist? But maybe it's a retooling, right? Maybe his unique ability now, and that's a strategic coach, Dan Sullivan term. I want to make
yes.
sure I
I
give
was just talking about
credit.
him earlier today. Yeah.
Where, yeah, Dan's my coach.
Okay.
So I have great admiration for Dan. I've known him for quite a while. I'm in
Yeah.
his free zone group, and he's my coach. I love Dan. And so Dan has for many years has ingrained in that unique ability mindset, and that try to stay in that unique ability, which is your superpower.
Mm,
That's Mike Koenig's, another friend of mine's term is superpower. But just leaning into that, and when you fade away from that, your well-being and life satisfaction is not it's not congruent. And so what if his unique ability was teaching others, right? What if
mm,
he could help expand his practices and really help other dentists grow a better practice? There's a lot, obviously, in the dentist world that's becoming quite a trend in helping other dentists live a better life and become better dentists. And so perhaps a change is in order for him.
mm,
And in the professional world, if you're a dentist, attorney, even a CPA, right, at some point, maybe you do get to that point where doing the day-to-day work, you want to move away from that. And it's okay to do so, and give your
mm,
permission to do so, and be very self-aware that maybe there's another contribution I can make. And I was there with my last company, as I felt like I had contributed what I can contribute. I gave the reins over to my leadership team and started
mm,
retooling myself in a different direction.
mm,
And it's a powerful, I think it's important for us as entrepreneurs to
mm.
recognize that. I don't know if that helps, Salim, but
Yeah, no,
that's
it does. And I mean, as you share it now, it's almost like, there's got to be an evolution. We got to evolve. We cannot expect to be like in a certain career as entrepreneurs. We own a business and we're going to own it for like 30, 40 years. And I can kind of see where that burnout can go. And I see it all the time. And I don't know why the entrepreneur doesn't recognize that and kind of do the retooling or enter clarity, become clear about,
yeah,
hey, now after 15 years or 18 years as a dentist, what's my next way of contribution,
yeah. Dan
and
would
that
call it
doesn't
your
happen.
next 10x, right? That would be the term
Yeah.
he would use. Is that it sounds like this dentist has 10x his business, and now what? Maybe there's a new 10x to be
Yeah.
focused on.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is so good. Really enjoying it, Aaron. You really, shared some really important
thank you.
stuff. As we come close to the last few minutes, what are some things you like? Some couple of things you want to share that we absolutely you got to share, and you haven't
Yeah,
shared yet.
yeah. I talk about in the book the law of entre agency, and a synonymous term is free will as an entrepreneur. And
Mm,
that when we are, and Marty's done a lot of work, Dr. Seligman, his students call him Marty, so
mm,
I'm just used to calling him that. But in that law, Marty has built out these three pillars, and the three pillars of agency, which so apply to entrepreneurs, is the first pillar is what we call in positive psychology self-efficacy. And all self-efficacy, fancy word for saying I'm confident in that I can figure things out, that I have the ability to figure things out as an entrepreneur. That's the first thing. And when we feel like we have the confidence and ability, that helps us make better choices and helps us lean into our agency. The second one is optimism. Optimists look at challenges and setbacks as temporary.
mm,
Like, this is just temporary. I will get through this. And as an entrepreneur, think of all the uncertainties that entrepreneurs face. If they can look at it from an optimistic standpoint, their choices expand and their agency expands. And the third one is imagination. That's the third pillar, is that without imagination, that goes back to the second law of creativity, then an entrepreneur's ability to again make the best choices for their business becomes limited. They're not imagining a better future at that point. And so when those things don't exist and coexist with each other, then an entrepreneur's ability to really drive the ship of their company
mm,
becomes far less like it's just not, you can't be flexible in that situation.
mm,
And there are times in history or times in a business where if we're blaming others for things that have happened in our business and not taking ownership, then our self-efficacy gets robbed. We're robbing ourselves of our own self-efficacy. We're also robbing ourselves of optimism. Like we can take these things away from ourselves when we look outwardly for excuses and blaming other people. That will go away. And I think it's a little bit, I wouldn't call it an epidemic necessarily, but a real big issue among entrepreneurs, especially early entrepreneurs who are trying to figure it out. I think those three pillars are important. So that would be my capstone of what to share with you as far as what I would love people to walk away with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got one more question that I'm going to ask you after we talk about the book. Um,
Yeah.
Excite, and it's about mindset. It's the first thing you shared earlier on. So I want to kind of finish with going back to mindset. But before we go there,
Mm-hmm.
this is exciting, man. This month or next month, your book comes out.
Next month. Yeah. February.
Where can folks find it?
Yeah, so it's EntreThrive, and you can either go to EntreThrive, ENTRETHRIVE.com, and order the book. Pre-order. You can actually pre-order before February 21st on the Kindle version. And then the hard copy, soft copies will be available February 21st. We also have a free tool for your listeners. They can go to entrethrive.com/straight talk, and it's the guiding truth tool. It also, we have added an extra goodie there for you and your listeners called it's called the EntreClarity Guide, and we talk about breakaways in that chapter, and it goes deeper into breakaways, which is one of my favorite concepts in the book. And then, if they go to that, entrethrive.com/straight talk, they can obviously order the book from just going inside there and get that pre-ordered.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Last question. I'm looking
Yeah.
for a 30 seconds or less response, Aaron. I wasn't planning on asking this question, but this interview has gone so phenomenal. And I think what's going to come from is going to be pretty phenomenal. How has the power of positive psychology impacted you? What is Aaron, what is working with you like as a family member, as a friend, as a community member, as a customer, as a client? Who are you? How is all this affected
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. I wish I could throw up a picture of me in 2015 and a picture of me now. Not only am I about 25 pounds less, I just am happier.
Mm,
Positive psychology, from the first time I was introduced to it in 2017 from the book, Sean Acor's book, the Happiness Advantage, was the first introduction for me in positive psychology. Then I read the book Flourish from Dr. Martin Seligman. And from then on, I feel like in my personal life and in my
mm,
professional life, I've had this hockey stick growth.
mm,
And financially, I have financial freedoms I have never experienced before.
mm,
I feel like I'm living the dream. It's not that I deal with uncertainties all the time, and I have bad days like everybody else, but overall, my well-being, my satisfaction, my gratitude for where I'm at. I'm 51 years old. I am just so grateful, for the transformation that's taken place and the positive psychology and other factors, of course, but that's been quite the foundation for my personal flourishing.
awesome. Great.
Yeah.
That was 29 seconds. Great job answering that.
Sorry, I went over. Thanks for
Aaron,
tracking me. I appreciate it.
this was
True
good. Really
accountant right
enjoy.
there.
Yeah. Loved this. Folks, get Aaron's book, Entre Thrive. Should be on, all the show note. In the show notes, we'll have all the links and all that, so you can kind of reach out to Aaron and all get the goodies as well that he shared. Aaron, thank you so much, man.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Wonderful interview. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.